Hey guys, how's it going? This is Roka Soka Raw, episode 2. And today I'm going to be talking about my true thoughts about Dragonball Super. Now, if you've been watching my channel long enough, then you realize that I haven't talked much about Dragonball Super. In fact, I've probably only made, at least since its initial release, like 2 videos about it. And even then, they were more like reactions rather than discussion videos. Well, there's a couple reasons for it. Firstly, I don't want to do weekly reviews simply because it's too tedious. And although I do catch the episodes every week, I still don't necessarily want to review them. Plus, I don't feel there's anything that I can say that hasn't been said by someone else. And as for other types of discussion videos, to be honest, there isn't that much to discuss other than a handful of things. So, up until now, like overall, I've been pretty disappointed with Dragon Ball Super. And it's not just the bad animation; it's also the pretty weak overall fight choreographies. And I'm talking about both Goku versus Beerus as well as Goku versus Frieza. Like, I feel they both could have used some work, although there were some episodes of Goku versus Beerus that were pretty good, but overall they weren't that good. And nor was the Goku versus Frieza fight. Like, there were some moments that were good, but as a fight, I don't think that they were really anything that special. Especially if you compare them to the epic fights we got in Z, and even some in GT for that matter. And another thing is I don't like how the series is inconsistent when it comes to pacing. And I feel that it probably has the worst pace out of any Dragon Ball series so far. It's more like episode to episode rather than like arc to arc. Like, I feel that because they have so many different teams writing them, and probably because they don't have really a solid source material, like maybe that's the reason why they're writing them sort of episode to episode, but just happening to, connect them into one overall story. Like, that's how it feels, honestly. Like, even GT felt a little more like it was planning for the overall story arc rather than just the individual episode. And I suppose one of the very few things I do think that Super does above the other Dragon Ball series is the slice of life moments. I mean, some of the best slice of life moments that humanize the characters are in Super, bar none. Particularly the ones with Krillin. Like, especially when it seems like he's going through a midlife crisis, as some people have pointed out. And it seems to make sense considering how off he's been acting in Super so far, but it makes sense given what he's been through as well as how old he is. He asks Goku to punch him in the face. He all of a sudden wants to get back into martial arts to some degree at least. And even I think it might have been Geekdom or Hail Zeon, like one of them pointed out that at least he thought, no, I think it was Hail Zeon. He pointed out that he doesn't find it that weird that Krillin actually, had trouble with the Frieza soldiers. Like, basically, because of what Frieza and a lot of other villains have put him through, he felt that, it was perfectly understandable for Krillin to freeze up like that. Now, I know where he's coming from, but I pretty much disagree because of how weak the Frieza soldiers are, as well as the fact that he had no problems with trying to handle them when he was actually on Namek. In case people have forgotten about that. Not only that, but he didn't seem to have any troubles with weaker henchmen, at least a few that he fought since then. Granted, he didn't face that much, but I'm just saying, like, he didn't seem that shell-shocked after the Namek arc, but all of a sudden now he is. I mean, I don't really buy it. So, as for the whole Universe 6 stuff, that's probably the first time I've actually been really excited about the series, because up to this point it's been pretty disappointing overall. Now, as for episode 27, I actually really enjoyed that episode. It's one of my favorites. In fact, I think that it's probably the best closer to an arc in Dragon Ball Super, and possibly the best closer to an arc. Maybe not the best, one of the best in Dragon Ball history. Like, it was that good. I actually felt it was better than the last few minutes of the movie, which I actually felt was kind of rushed. You know, even when I go back to watch Resurrection F, I feel that the last few minutes with Vegeta to the planet blowing up to Goku defeating Frieza, all of that was rushed. Like, what was that? Within the last 2 or 3 minutes? Yeah, like, I really felt disappointed when I originally watched that, but I'm glad Super corrected it by fleshing it out a bit more. So let's see. Trying to think of anything else I have to say on Dragon Ball Super. Well, I really like the character of Beerus and... Well, characters of Beerus and Whis so far, and I don't have too much to say on Champa and Vados because I have seen episode 28 as well as a handful of episodes they were in before that. And, you know, let me just say that Beerus is actually one of my favorite Dragon Ball characters of all time. Like, he's not like Rhymestyle where he's number 1, but he's definitely up there. I would say at this point Beerus is probably my top 10 easy. And Whis is at least in my top 20. Like, I'm glad that Super definitely expanded on his character. I mean, granted, there's not much to him, but I'm just saying, like, compared to the movies, Super definitely expanded on Whis' character a bit, which a lot of people haven't pointed out, but, you know, I'm pointing it out here. And, I suppose some of the individual episodes, not many, but a handful, are pretty well directed, even compared to the ones we saw in DBZ and whatnot. And another thing I want to point out is Super has a lot of flaws even above those of the previous series. You know, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT. Like, for example, I think the overall storytelling is the weakest in Super. Now, that isn't to say that there aren't enjoyable moments. There obviously are enjoyable moments, but I'm just saying that overall the storytelling is weaker, as I feel that they're not putting as much effort so far, especially in the Resurrection F arc, as they were even in GT for that matter. And I can easily say that the Resurrection F arc, despite its cool moments and whatnot, is probably one of the weakest arcs, if not the weakest. And that's saying a lot because I also really didn't like the Super 17 arc, but I actually think that the Super 17 arc is actually somewhat better than the Resurrection F arc. I'm just being honest. And another thing about the series that is worse is the fights themselves. I even felt that the fights in GT were better and just better choreographed and seemed that there were more passion into it. However, I hope that this changes, and because we're, getting new stuff from now on, hopefully, that they'll actually try harder and, get the best people to choreograph the fights, at least similar to the ones that choreographed, the movies, especially the Resurrection F movie. I mean, the choreography in Resurrection F was probably the best, or at least one of the best in the Dragon Ball movies, certainly of the recent ones. Because, the recent ones tend to have just generic punches, kicks, and energy blasts. Well, ki blasts. I need to stop calling it energy blasts. They call it ki and whatnot, and that makes more sense. And I also feel that Super probably has the weakest score so far. No, wait. No, yeah, I'd say it has the weakest music score. Now, if I had to rank the series in terms of their music scores, I would say Super's the worst, then Dragon Ball Z. As much as I love Dragon Ball Z, I don't like the music as much. It's eh. Like, I even like One Piece's music better than Dragon Ball Z's. But I do like the music score for the original Dragon Ball, and I've heard some of it while watching the Dragon Ball dissections from Mr. Fusion. However, I think my all-time favorite music score is the Dragon Ball GT music score. And I'm sure if you heard the original, I'm not talking about the Funimation version, not that crap. I'm talking about the original Toei version. If not, even the re-recordings. I mean, even the re-recordings are pretty good because they keep the original sound and whatnot. They just translate them into English, and they're still both pretty good. But yeah, in my opinion, the GT music score is the best, whereas Super has the worst one. Though there are some Super songs that are pretty good, and I do like the, I guess you can say the anime-esque intro and outro. Like, I actually like them the best because I feel the original ones, while more distinct, were just kind of, I don't know, they didn't work for me. Like the Super outros actually do work, as they seem a lot more just aesthetic, as most animes tend to be. So I suppose, other than all of that, I guess you could say technically the plots are a bit better woven than the ones in Z, especially if you count the Cell arc and the Boo arc, which just came out of nowhere. Especially the Boo arc, which had no relevance to anything prior. At least the Cell arc tried to go back to the the Red Ribbon Army arc by saying that, oh, Dr. Gero was the head scientist who escaped. But with the Boo arc, Toriyama didn't even try. At least in Super, like, all of these arcs are related to the past in some way. The Battle Gods arc, well, technically that started the series, but, the stuff from that arc spills over to the Resurrection F arc because it was in the Battle of Gods arc that Goku, learned Super Saiyan. Super Saiyan God, actually. And where he met Beerus and Whis, and they, continue their relationship in Resurrection F, and Goku and Vegeta find a new level of power. And the Resurrection F arc, well, I guess it technically will carry over to the Universe 6 arc because the characters get stronger. I don't know, the Resurrection F arc is kind of weird, but at least the Battle of Gods arc and those events will carry over to the Universe 6 arc. Yeah, so overall, my feelings of the series are a bit mixed. On the one hand, I feel it has the least substance out of any Dragon Ball series so far, and I'm hoping this changes with the Universe 6 arc, but even if it does, I'm still seeing that this will not be remembered that favorably years from now. Like, I could just see that right now. And a lot of people have already said that after they initially watch these episodes that they're not going to go back. And I don't really blame them. I don't think I'm going to go back to watch them in order, just because I could just watch the movies for much the same thing but better quality overall. And, much shorter, so you don't have to endure as much BS. So basically my overall thoughts are that Super overall has been disappointing. I think it's, when you count all the factors, it's probably the worst Dragon Ball series so far, but it still has some enjoyable moments, and I do see that it still has potential to be decent. However, no matter how good the next arc may be, it still can't erase how mediocre the first two arcs were. And yes, I'm saying Battle of Gods arc is mediocre. Deal with it. Anyway, this has been Roka Soka Raw, Episode 2. Let me know what you guys think of Dragon Ball Super so far, especially both arcs. Let me know what you think of the Universe 6 arc. And I will see you guys later.